He's been advisor to Presidents Clinton and Trump, and now he's here to advise us all. Dick Morris is on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Good morning, good afternoon, Dick Morris.
The President Trump on Thursday addressed the country in a primetime address, Wednesday, I think, and warned about the danger and the reality of Chinese and foreign hacking in American elections. And it was a major speech and was broadcast primetime live over Fox News, Newsmax, and CBS TV. And as a result, about 60% of American TV sets had access to it. NBC and ABC Network and MSNBC and CNN did not cover it except, for episodic coverage biased by their commentary.
Yeah.
But 60% of the country had access to it. So it's a big deal, and we'll see what it does. We don't have polling back on it yet. John McLaughlin is in the field right now with the survey, but when we'll have data early next week, I'll keep you posted on it.
The story of them not airing it is a big deal also.
Yeah, I know, of course. But yeah. I'm grateful that CBS did, and I think that represents a flip in CBS because Barry Weiss is now in charge. And we seem to have brought CBS in from the left to the right, which is great. In the report, Trump showed how intelligence community manipulated and fabricated intel in a conspiracy against the President of the United States, Donald Trump at that time. He cited the committee's 3-year investigation into anomalous health incidents, or AHIs, saying it resulted in Gabbard recalling intelligence community assessments on the issue early this year, after investigators found evidence of intelligence manipulation and concealment. Crawford, the chairman of the House committee, stressed that most intelligence professionals are great patriots, but he's seen far too many instances of intelligence bureaucrats who think they know better than the American people and better than the president. So what we're dealing with here is first the allegation that there's foreigners voting in U.S. elections. And contrary to the BS that's handed out by the mainstream media, the Justice Department said that in a careful audit of just 4 states, New York, California, Nevada, and a fourth one, I forget, they found 278,000 non-citizens on the active voter rolls. Don't know if they voted or not, but most probably did, and all could. And they're non-citizens. They're either foreigners or they're illegals. They also found 400,000 dead people on the voter rolls in those 4 states. And it's not that the dead people are going to vote, it's that they may vote. You may have election fraud people, left-wingers, coming in and saying that the names of the dead person, and the election inspector would look it up and see you're active in registration, and they'll sign them in. And states without photo ID, which is most of the blue states, they could all vote. And that's just 4 states. It's about 700,000 voters in 4 states.
I really believe we have to bring back that system that we put together. If you vote illegal, you can get arrested, you can get deported. And I think we got to bring those signs back for this midterm to all the areas we think it's important.
I agree. And I think we had an impact last time in 24 with that. The president also said that China has a vast intel operation trying to influence the U.S. elections. I don't much care about the propaganda stuff they're talking about, but he said that China had printed up at least 20,000 driver's licenses to distribute to Chinese citizens to vote in U.S. elections.
Oh, really?
Yep, 20,000. So and they obviously could concentrate them in certain states and certain areas. Trump did not say that he thought he won the 2020 election, because that's a trap the media wants you to fall into.
Sure.
They want to be able to say this is part of his ongoing claim that he won the 2020 election, and A, who cares because it's over, and B, he can't prove it, and C, no court found that he did, but the answer is no court did the investigation that the FBI did. No court has that kind of clearance and that kind of staff. But I think the key thing here is to avoid discussing this in terms of the 2020 race, but instead talk about it in the future. I spoke to the president on Friday morning by phone, and he asked me how I thought he was doing, and I said, great. But I said, I'm worried that your speech will change the election focus from immigration and the economy, where you'd win on both, and to who won the 2020 election. And the media is going to try to spin your critique of our election security, which I think was something you had to do because you're president, and if anything is a national security threat, this certainly is. But they're going to try to spin it as being more kvetching about the 2020 election. I used the word kvetching in the phone call, too.
You did not.
No, I did.
I want to say this real fast. Dick Morris does not kiss the president. He does. He does halfway through. But he also tells him things.
I just kissed one cheek.
Yeah. No, that's funny. No, but seriously.
I don't turn the other cheek.
Seriously, and I'm proud of this of you, because it's real easy to say, oh, you're great. Oh, your numbers are great. But Dick will tell him like that. He'll say, don't say this because this is going to hurt you. And even if he says, well, I don't care, Dick, I'm going to say it. Or sometimes he says, all right. So I have to give Dick credit for that, and that's very important.
Thank you. What he said this time was he said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not going to make it the theme of the election. And I said, you got to, in effect, outshout yourself and make sure that economy and immigration is the theme. And I think he really got it. Basically, Trump has got the midterm elections won, I told him. He won. He's got it won because of the Senate races and the House races. In the House, you don't know exactly, but first of all, the Harvard-Harris polling company, which is one of the only two that I trust, the other being McLaughlin. Harvard-Harris is run by Mark Penn, my former guy who I brought into the Clinton campaign. And
John McLaughlin.
And John McLaughlin, who's the president's pollster, who is fantastic.
That you brought into
into Trump. Mm-hmm. And the Harvard-Harris poll shows in this week that the Republicans have pulled even in the generic ballot, which is when you ask people, if all things are equal in your district, are you planning to vote Democrat or Republican for Congress? And historically, the Democrats have an edge in that because you have these districts that are 100% Democratic, like Harlem or South Side of Chicago, because they're overwhelmingly minority, and the Democrats win it with 90% of the vote. So a generic ballot, which just gives everybody across the country an equal vote, will show the Democrats winning. Democrats probably have more people voting for them for the House than Republicans do because of that. But this poll, after months...
Well, hold on. If the Democrats have more people voting for them, they're going to win.
No, because they're in districts where the votes aren't needed.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if they win a Harlem district with 60% or 90%.
Got it.
It does in the generic ballot, but it doesn't matter in terms of the outcome.
Yeah, I understand.
And about 5 months ago, the Republicans had a 6-point edge in the generic ballot. Then it dropped to 4, then to 2, and the Harvard-Harris poll of July 11th to 12th shows it dead even, 50-50. And dead even means a Republican win, a big Republican win, a convincing one, and that's very positive. And then you have the reapportionment, where Trump said because of the massive change in the country, both in terms of people moving to the right, he said we won't wait until 2030 to do reapportionment. We normally would. But I want it done in 2025 so it's applicable to the 2026 race. And he asked states to do that. And Texas and a lot of Republican states said, okay, we will. California said, not only, we said we will, but we're going to do it to try to counter the gain of Democratic seats, and we're going to use the midterm reapportionment to gerrymander further for Democratic candidates. So there was a face-off. But the results of it are that the Republicans gained in 13 districts and the Democrats gained in 5. Their effort to gain in Virginia was thrown out by the court. So we have an 8-seat advantage in the reapportionment. Then we have a big advantage because the Supreme Court in Louisiana versus Calais ruled that you cannot gerrymander based on race. You can gerrymander based on party. It's okay to do a district that's more Democrat or more Republican, but you can't do one based on race that's more black. And the efforts of the Justice Department to use the Voting Rights Act to instruct states to draw districts that elected black candidates to Congress was unconstitutional and had to stop.
Sure.
Now, there are 20 seats in the South that are held by black Democrats that should be integrated districts, that shouldn't be black-only districts. And with fair district lines, most of those would lose. So the question was, would the state legislatures do the reapportionment now, or would they wait until 2030? And in a bunch of states, Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, they elected to do the reapportionment now. And that has cost Democrats about 7 or 8 additional seats. So you're up to about 15 seats that shifted. And then you have a big change in the party registration. Nationally, the Democrats have lost about 4 million registered Democrats.
Really?
And Republicans have picked up about 2.5 million. The rest going to independent.
That's a 600 million.
So when you put all this together, there is sort of a built-in Republican advantage of 20 seats. And the House, as you know, is a 2-seat margin, so that makes a vast difference. So that's the House. In the Senate, we have a tremendous advantage. The Democrats need to pick up 4 seats in order to control the Senate. The 2 big seats that are being contested are Maine and Michigan. In Maine, Platner, the crazy Democrat with the Nazi tattoo, was the nominee. He won the primary. And then allegations came out in the New York Times that he raped a woman and sexually harassed others, and he had to drop out of the race. So the Democrats convened a nominating process in Maine. And it looks like Troy Jackson, who is a Bernie Sanders acolyte and an AOC candidate, is going to win that process. It looks like he will be the opponent of Susan Collins, which means Collins will probably win. The Democrats in Maine may be very radical, but the state itself is not. And then in Michigan, we're holding our breath because on August 4th, Michigan will name a candidate for senator. Gary Peters, the incumbent Democrat, isn't running again. It's an open seat. And the 2 candidates are a guy named El Said and an established Democratic congressman. I forgot her name. And at the moment, El Said is winning in the polls. Bernie Sanders is out there campaigning for him. And if he wins, we're going to pick up Michigan. They're not going to vote for communists in Michigan. So those would be 2. Susan Collins would be keep, and Gary Peters would be a pickup, which would be +1. And then in Georgia, John Ossoff, O-S-O-F-F, was elected in that fixed election of 2020. And the evidence that it was rigged is just incredible. And he should be defeated.
Not allegedly rigged?
No, it really is. Mike Collins is running against him, the former Republican congressman. And I think he's going to win. So I think we're going to pick up seats in Michigan, maybe, we'll know on August 4th, and in Georgia. In terms of the 4 seats we have to defend, we've got Susan Collins, who I think is going to make it. The only seat that we have to defend that we might lose is North Carolina, where Roy Cooper, the former Democratic governor, is ahead of our candidate. Wesley, W-A-S-L-E-Y, the former head of the Democratic National Committee. He's about 6 points ahead, but that's largely because he's better known because he used to be governor. And we have a big issue in North Carolina, which is that as Governor Cooper pardoned and released 3,500 prisoners from state jails because the court said that the crowding there was dangerous because of the possibility of COVID spreading.
Oh, really? In the prison?
In the prison. And one of the inmates he chose to release murdered that poor Ukrainian girl in a Charlotte, North Carolina train station. So it's kind of a Willie Horton issue, and that may mean we win North Carolina. Otherwise, we have to assume that Cooper will win, and that'll be a +1 for the Democrats. The other states that the Democrats are fantasizing that they're going to win are all BS. They're not going to win in Texas because Texas went for Trump by like 10 points. They're not going to win in any of the other states that they are fantasizing about. So I think the Republicans are going to gain 1 in the Senate and they're going to keep the House.
And you really believe they're fantasizing? They don't really have the numbers?
Yeah, and in states where Trump carried heavily. Right. In those, like in Ohio, Trump carried by 13. The Democrats are fantasizing that they're going to win that. They're not going to win that. Right. And I think so I told Trump, I said, look, you have the midterms won. They're in your pocket. Don't endanger it by making the issue about election security. Keep it on the economy and immigration.
And we have to make sure we don't just say, oh, it's won, don't worry about it, and then people sit home. They're going to win, we don't have to go out and vote. We got to go out and vote.
Right.
You can't ever say, okay, he's going to win, it's a shoo-in. There's never a shoo-in. There's never. So anyway, we still have to go out and not sit on our butts at home and watch the bowl game that day. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, what are we going to talk about, Dick? Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about Dick Morris stuff when we get back.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. A new survey of registered voters, the one I trust by Harvard-Harris, taken on July 11th and 12th, shows that the generic ballot shows 50% planning to support a Democrat for Congress and 50% planning to support a Republican. That's obviously a date even tie, which, as I explained in the previous segments, is a big edge for the Republicans, because the generic ballot always comes out in favor of Democrats, because you have districts where all the minorities vote Democrat, 90% vote Democrat, and that influences the generic ballot. But in the competitive districts, it goes one way or the other, and the Republicans have no such districts. Even in the heavily Republican states like Idaho and others, you don't have 90-10 districts. You have 60-40 districts. So the generic ballot has historically way understated the Republican chances and way overstated the Republican chance. It's a closer race than the polls have predicted. The Republicans now lead Trump on the issue of the economy, which is absolutely crucial. And it's a very, very positive result. When they ask who you trust to deal with the economy, Trump and the Republicans get 53 and the Democrats get 47. And that's going to be the major issue. The Republicans also have strong support on the issues of deportation. The voters overwhelmingly favor continuing the deportations, and they certainly favor it where there are criminals involved, but even when they're just people who have overstayed their visas or who came here illegally. And on all the other issues, the Republicans have a big edge. And I think that you're probably looking at a Republican win in the House. climate change hysteria, not climate change, but climate change hysteria kills people.
We did. We touched on this last week, but we're going to do it again.
France is in the midst of a heat wave with temperatures higher than any point in the last 80 years. But the country is paralyzed because of something distinctly French, a national aversion to a technology that's existed for about a century, air conditioning. Unbelievably, only about a quarter of homes in France have air conditioning. That compares with 88% of the homes in the United States. One reason why air conditioning is so rare is that French have been indoctrinated to believe that air conditioning is bad for the environment.
But don't worry about dying.
It increases the climate footprint. 80% of the French think so. During heat waves, people die if they don't have access to modern conveniences like air conditioning. In 2003, a heat wave in France killed 15,000 people. And God knows how many are dying right now. Because they don't have nurses, they don't have air conditioning even in nursing homes or hospitals.
Idiots.
But it's not just France, nearly the whole European continent. The climate of the Earth has warmed slightly in recent decades, but the reason is probably God and the climate,
and the machine itself,
not because of anything we're doing.
Right.
And the climate change Luddites would rather curse the heat than turn on the air conditioning, and that's actually killing a lot of people.
So stupid.
So, Roxanne?
We're going to do On the Rocks. We have Roxana Maria.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Roxana.
Well, on this day, excuse me, something just called in there. On this day, July 19th, history has seen significant moments, some marked by tragedy, others by courage and lasting change. One of the most devastating fires connected in New York's history was today, the fire of 1845. It erupted in Lower Manhattan. 345 buildings were destroyed, and firefighters battled through the night. But an exploding warehouse containing saltpeter worsened the disaster. Dozens of people lost their lives, millions of dollars in property. The fire brought forth, though, new laws improving fire department building codes, water systems, creating the city safer for future generations. And internationally significant were the signatures that made Israel a state in 1948. Within minutes of those signings, President Harry Truman recognized the new state, making the United States the first nation to extend official recognition. This was all during the first Arab-Israeli War of 1948. International diplomacy focused on a ceasefire, preventing the conflict from escalating further. From the historic point of view, July 19th reminds us that the birth of Israel is not only marked by the signatures on its Declaration of Independence, but also the immediate efforts to secure peace amid war. A final note of great achievement. The crew of Apollo 11, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins, firing their spacecraft's engine behind the moon and successfully entered lunar orbit. This was a crucial step that made the moon landing tomorrow possible on July 20th. The Eagle landed in the sea tranquility as Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface and spoke the words that become known around the world. That's one step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It was a moment of world unity. History reminds us that every generation faces its own fires, some literal, some figurative. Cities are rebuilt after disasters. Wars eventually give way to peace. Great achievements begin with perseverance and faith, and voices once ignored can change the course of a nation. And so here we are. If I do have one moment, I would like to also add that in 1848, the first Women's Rights Convention was held in New York to try to get equality for women for voting.
Seneca Falls, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
You're right. Seneca Falls, New York.
I told you he was going to jump in with stuff.
knew it.
What about the Israeli signature of the United
Well, let me let Rock finish. Are you finished, Rock?
Go, Rock.
Yes.
Okay,
Ready for conversation.
I want to talk about Israel's independence.
What I tell you.
First of all, I very identify with it because I was born on November 28th, 1947, which was the day the UN voted to recognize Israel as an independent country. They voted to partition the British territory into Jordan on the one hand and Israel on the other. And that led to the formation of the State of Israel on July 20th of 1948, 47, 48. Now, when Israel became a state, immediately, like that day,
Yes.
Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, all joined and attacked Israel. It was like 8 or 9 countries against one. And Israel at that time did not really have much of an army. They had settlers who had defended Israel and promoted Israeli independence, but they really did not have an organized army. The Arab armies were enormous. At that time, the Russians liked Israel because all of the former leaders of the communists were Jewish. And the Bolshevik Revolution was basically a Jewish revolution. Lenin took it over, but it started with a lot of Jews. So Czechoslovakia was pro-Israel because the Russians told them it's okay. And they sent Israel weapons, including planes. And that gave Israel its first air force, being able to defend itself. But it was an absolute miracle that the Israelis won the war of 1948. A complete miracle. Nobody thought they would. Everybody thought the Arabs would sweep them into the sea. But the Israelis, with only a population of about 2 million, who are largely refugees from Europe who came to Israel, managed to defend itself and managed to win.
One, I want to jump in. I think the most important part of that whole thing is God had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think he did. Now, at that point, the Israeli government immediately said, okay, Palestinians who live here are entitled to become Israeli citizens and to become voters. And ultimately, and a lot of Palestinians did, millions. And ultimately, you now have in Israel about 12 million people in population, and about 2.5 million of them are of Palestinian descent. But over 1 million Palestinians said, no, we're fleeing, we're getting the hell out of here because we don't trust a government run by Jews. Right. And they became refugees. And the UN stepped in and set up refugee camps for them. And that was the beginning of the Palestinian Gaza Hamas terrorism. And that's how it started. Now, in every other country in the world after World War II, there were massive dislocations. 2 million Germans were forced to move to Poland, and 2 million Poles were forced to move back into Germany. Millions of people throughout Europe were relocated and forced to move somewhere else because the boundaries were changed. But there were and the UN stepped in with refugee organizations and provided food and water and support, without which a lot of these refugees would have died. And among this refugee effort were the ones in Israel in 1948. But all the other refugee agencies have folded up and finished, accomplished their task. The refugees are assimilated in their home, but not in Gaza. And in the West Bank and Gaza, the UN artificially keeps alive the hopes of return, and I'm going to get my farm in Israel back, and I have a right of return, and my farm was taken away from me. Even though you left voluntarily, Israel let you stay, but you chose not to. And that notion of the right of return set up the basis for the terrorism we now see in the Middle East.
And you know, Dick, I just wanted to add to that. That first year of your life, it was this day also that it was the United States Secretary of State George Marshall who sent the telegram to the United Nations mediator that implemented immediately, almost the next day when President Truman recognized all that. But it went from 5 Arab states in the war down to 3. It lasted 1 year. That was it.
But
so that was just amazing in itself.
That's interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that. The reason Truman recognized Israel, other than his own personal view, influenced by Chaim Weizmann, the future president of Israel, who was a friend of Truman's, and talked to him about it and got him, not Weizmann, his former partner in his haberdasher store in Missouri was his close friend and was Jewish, and went to the White House and helped influence Truman to recognize Israel. But also, Truman was facing re-election in 1948, keep saying 18. And everybody thought Truman was going to lose and Thomas E. Dewey would win. And a guy named Clark Clifford, who was kind of my idol, was Truman's staffer. And he said, no, we can win this election. And he formulated a strategy of mobilizing Jews and blacks and other minorities to vote for Truman. And part of that strategy was to recognize Israel, so the Jewish vote would come to Truman. And Truman did, and the Jews did, and Truman won. And even carried New York because of the Jewish vote moving to him, because Israel was recognized by the U.S. The State Department opposed it. They were Arabists. They said, hey, Israel doesn't have any oil, and what business do we have recognizing it? But Truman said, nope, they suffered incredibly in World War II, and we are going to give them a homeland.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Bruce Blakeman. First, I'm going to talk about New York bans energy production and data centers, and then we're going to have Blakeman on to talk about that when we come back.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So this story that I'm about to read to you is exactly the reason why we need Bruce Blakeman as governor of New York. Lord, what fools the politicians in New York be. Usually a governor tries to lure businesses and jobs into their state. Not New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Jokel, as I call her. She has just made New York the first state to ban the construction of data centers. Her progressive admirers are cheering. They might as well be saying, we don't want your stinking jobs, tax revenues, and economic development. Be gone. That's ridiculous, isn't it? You'd think the politician pinheads in Albany would at least learn from their mistakes. This is the same state that banned fracking in 2014, as Dixon's talked about, even though the state sits on the world's largest shale gas formation. So New York's got none of the jobs or the billions of dollars of revenues. Maybe they should take the advice of Citadel's Ken Griffin, who laid out the key question for the data center banners in a recent interview. This is Ken talking. We better damn well build the data centers in America because they're going to get built somewhere in the world. And can you imagine how absolutely insane it would be if we ended up having to be dependent on foreign countries for data centers? Build that damn center. This is Ken talking. Build that damn center in America. It will kill me if we end up having to pay a bunch of foreign countries tens or hundreds of billions of dollars money a year. They're going to get this thing built. You don't want them to build, you do want them to build it here in America, or do you want them to build it abroad? Answer that question. Bruce Blakeman, how are you, Mr. Blakeman?
Hey, Bruce, welcome.
Bruce for governor.
Excellent to talk to both of you today. Always a great show.
What do you think of Jokel?
Well, I'll tell you something. You know, this is an act of economic cowardice by Kathy Hochul. This is an act of economic malpractice by Kathy Hochul. there is no wonder we are number 50 at the bottom of economic outlook in the United States of America. That's why people are leaving in droves. Businesses are leaving. We are the most overtaxed, overregulated state in America. Our electric costs are 70% higher than the national average. And that's why we are on a death spiral. I'm running for governor to be the pilot that pulls us out of that death spiral.
Nice.
At the Citizens Budget Commission that I used to work for says that New York State has lost the largest share of millionaires in the country from 2010 to 22. It said if New York had not chased out its millionaires, it would be collecting about $10 billion extra in taxes every year, nearly equal to the amount Zandami wants to increase taxes. In New York, the top 1% of earners pay about 45% of state income taxes in any given year. So New York revenues are very reliant on having high earners stayed in New York, but instead they're moving to Texas, Florida, and other states.
So you got to bring them back, Bruce.
Well, the only way they're coming back is if there's a change in leadership and a change in policies. Kathy Hochul and Zoran Mandami, I call him Mandami the commie. The two of them, Comrade Kathy and Mandami the commie, they are chasing out high net worth individuals when every other state in America, except for a few exceptions like Illinois and California, are wooing these people to come to their state. Now, when they leave, as you said, they take all that tax revenue with them. And who's left with the bill? It's the middle class. And who else is hurt when high net worth individuals leave? The carpenter, the plumber, the electrician, the waiter, the waitress, the bartender, the busboy, the dog walker, the cleaning service. So this is hurting the middle class, and it sounds nice. Yeah, let's tax the rich. Yeah. But when you explain it to people and tell them that the burden's going to fall on them, they change their tune and they realize how empty Mandami and Hochul are in their policies towards economic development, prosperity, and making for a better state to live in. So our young people want to live here. The young people are moving out because they don't want to be in a state where there's no future.
Bruce, what do you think of Mandami saying he might arrest Netanyahu if he comes here to speak to the General Assembly?
You know, good luck with that. But let me say this. Zoran Mandami comes from Uganda. He never criticizes Uganda, although he fled that country. That's a country where if you are in political opposition, you're tortured or murdered. That is a country that doesn't have human rights. Why doesn't he ever talk about Uganda? Why doesn't he talk about China, Russia, North Korea? He only singles out Israel because he's a virulent anti-Semite and he's an extremist. And the fact of the matter is that he is turning all people off now. He's anti-Christian, wouldn't attend the installation of a new Archbishop of the Catholic Church. He's alienated ethnic groups that built our state and our city. Couldn't find Little Italy on a map. There's
oh my God! I think he's going to destroy that beautiful church. I think it's in Brooklyn that there was a fire. He'll knock that thing down and either put a mosque or a shopping center.
He's saying he's going to arrest Netanyahu because he's wanted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The U.S. has not recognized the ICC, will not help appoint judges, and will not be part of the process.
But he does.
But Mandami is, and it's outrageous that he's using the UN being located in New York as an excuse to vindicate his political agenda.
So would you pluck him out of that seat if you're governor? I know I shouldn't ask you that. You don't want to really get into that.
Removal of a duly elected official is a drastic remedy. And I would only do that if he engaged in legality or did something that was very egregious.
Okay, good.
But what I would do is I would use what we call, as parents, incremental discipline. And with control over the budget, the governor has the ability to not fund certain programs, the ability to take over the NYPD if he's not enforcing the law.
Oh,
There's
you could
many
take over
things-
the NYPD. Interesting. The governor.
Yeah, there are many things that a governor can do in New York State without the drastic remedy of removing him. But I'll tell you this much: if he engaged in felonious activity, yes, I would consider removing him. But here's the thing about Mandami: he is somebody that is anti-American. He attacks Christians. He attacks ethnic groups. He attacks Israel. He is not somebody that really should be representing the greatest city and the greatest melting pot city in the world. So I'm just going to become governor and keep him in check. That's why it's so important that I become governor, because Kathy Hochul is his comrade. She's a willing participant in all of the crazy things he does. And by the way, on international law, let me say this. When I signed a friendship agreement with Judea and Samaria, my lawyers came to me and they said, we did some research. This is a violation of international law. And I said, well, the United States doesn't recognize that international law, and neither do I. So we executed that agreement, and we have an agreement with Judea and Samaria, and we are strong supporters of the state of Israel.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
good.
fantastic.
Well, we're strong supporters of you, Bruce, and very glad that you're running for governor, and God bless you.
Thank you,
God
Bruce.
bless both of you. Thank you so much. And
Listen,
it's an honor
Bruce,
to be on
is there
your show.
any website or something you want to put out there so that people can go to?
Absolutely. If you want to make a contribution, if you want to feel good about yourself, that you're in the fight against socialism and you're for American values, go to BlakemanForNewYork.com, BlakemanForNewYork.com.
Thank you so much. BLAKMAN, right?
BLAKEMAN.
EMAN, okay? BLAKEMAN.
God bless you,
Good.
Bruce.
Bless
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So you want to take a break? And
Yeah,
then we'll come
let's go to a
back?
break and we'll come back.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bruce.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris Show with Doug Dipierro, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Hey, Doug, what do you think? We have our current song, Stuck in the Middle with You.
Yeah.
There's also the rock song, Meet Me in the Middle.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I got to go listen to it.
Yeah.
I want to do Alicia Keys' song "New York" when you put me in the show. I'm such a New Yorker. But listen, the call-in number, by the way, is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. So let's talk about Europe may be upset with Trump, but his tough love approach is working, military historians say. Amid reports that Europeans are at the breaking point with the United States as President Trump pressures them to spend more on mutual defense, the reality is his strategy has worked. Respected military historian Victor Davis Hansen tells, he talks about. Ahead of North Atlantic Treaty, NATO, summit last week in Turkey, European leaders' frustrations with their American counterpart was the key story. The Wall Street Journal reported extensively on the breach between Washington and its allies over Trump's threats to seize Greenland that boosts the defense spending and question the U.S. commitment to the alliance. But Hansen, a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution and Stanford University, argues the actions of those European allies show Trump's pressure is working, despite the protests and suggestions about have they reached a breaking point with the U.S. I don't think that's happening. Since Trump took office last year and called for Europeans to boost the percentage of the GDP spent on defense, the NATO allies have responded with action. At a summit last year, the allies committed to boosting their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. But the net result of all this in year 2, NATO is going to be much more independent, much better to protect itself from Russia, and will allow U.S. to pivot and really take care of our equally important allies, Australia and the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, against the rising homogeny of China.
Yeah, hegemony. I think that this is really important. In the U.S. pulled back its aid to Ukraine, and it made Europe increase. And Europe stepped into the breach, and now is an equal supplier of arms to Ukraine with the U.S. That was absolutely vital. And an important part of it also is that Ukraine increased its production of weapons and makes the drones that now are winning the war against the Russians. And Trump's strategy of tough love with Europe, making them really produce with their military and rearming, I think has been very, very effective. Now, I earlier misstated. I said that there are 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in 4 states. The 4 states are California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada. New York did not submit its voter rolls to the government, so they can't assess it. Most of the blue states have not sent in their voter rolls, so it's probably close to 500,000 non-citizens who voted.
But then the government could tell, if you don't submit the voter roll.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There was Trump issued an executive order, and the post office issued a rule saying that if you did not submit your voter rolls to them in advance and tell them who to send absentee ballots to, the post office would not deliver absentee ballots throughout the state. If you're mass mailing them to everybody so they can be fraud, post office would not participate in that. A district court judge who's a Democrat stopped that. But now a circuit court of appeals for D.C. has delivered a huge victory to Trump and allowed for now a plan to move forward that will mean the post office will not handle mail-in or absentee ballots from people unless they're in a state with a federally approved citizenship list.
Right.
Now, there is a district court judge, I forget her name, also a left-winger appointed by Obama, who has ruled against it. So it's going to go to the Supreme Court, which is going to have to clarify it. But at the moment, the post office is proceeding with that. And I think that's going to be very effective in stopping fraud with mail-in voting.
Will this get to the Supreme Court in time?
Probably not. But the post office will then go ahead and enforce Trump's rule.
At least in the red states.
Well, I think all over. It's a circuit court, and the decision against it was just a district court. And while the circuit court does not have the authority to overrule the district court if it's not in its district, the post office would be correct in saying, well, it's a higher court that has given us authority.
And you think they're going to do that? Okay, good.
Yes, I do.
Oh, interesting.
So, in the meantime, inflation is under control, but not car prices.
No, the unaffordable automobile. The average new vehicle costs about $50,000 now, compared with $35,000 in 2018. That's a 40% increase in 6 years, driven first by the pandemic era, chip and other shortages that gutted inventory and handed dealers pricing power that they've never seen in decades. Financing costs have made the equation worse. Auto loan rates, which average around 3 to 4% in 2021, when the Fed was still running its 0% interest rate experiment, are now north of 6.5% for new vehicles and closer to 12% for used. The response has been predictable. Loan terms have stretched to nearly 69 months now, almost 6 years, to keep monthly payments low and to spread the pain across time. Down payments have shrunk, and leases have grown in place of purchases. Negative equity, where the owner owns more on its vehicle than it's worth, has become endemic. Americans are not solving the affordable affordability problem. They're deferring it. It's amazing. They're deferring it. How much time we got left, guys? Okay, let's go to a break, and we'll see you at the next hour.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, the news broadcasts that are broadcast in the middle of our show are done by ABC Network, WABC Network.
WABC.
And they're still liberals. So the news items often are liberal, and sometimes I need to rebut them. This last news broadcast said that sales at supermarkets are down because of inflation. Well, the fact is that inflation has absolutely fallen through the floor in June. Much bigger drop than expected, the biggest decline in 6 years. Consumer prices fell sharply in June, thanks to relief at the gas pump and a broad decline in inflation. The consumer price index fell 0.4% last month compared with May. That's the largest decline since 2020. Compared with a year ago, prices are higher, but core prices, that excludes food and energy, were flat compared with the prior month. This is the best inflation reading since January 2001 for the year. And for the year, core prices are up only 2.6%. So, contrary to the report that we just gave you on the news, inflation is absolutely dropping.
You know what, Dick?
And this is one of the big reasons Trump is going to win the midterms.
That says to me that this was dropping, the inflation rate was dropping right before the Iran thing. And then boom, 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 everything happened. Everyone's going, look, the economy's hot. So they were already in a down.
Yeah, well, it was dropping, you're right. And then the Iran war came, and gas prices increased and inflation peaked in April and May. But then when Trump reopened the strait and basically ended the war, although it's continuing, but tamped it down, inflation fell dramatically. And the big reality is that as we approach the midterm elections, inflation is no more the major issue.
That's unbelievable. Number seven. Okay. The
U.S. State Department is dismantling international birth tourism networks.
Even before the U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which will expand birth tourism, the U.S. Department of State started dismantling multiple birth tourism networks operating across Europe and Africa. These operations help foreign nationals fraudulently obtain visitor visas, primarily to give birth on U.S. soil, securing automatic U.S. citizenship for their children under the bastardized interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Not good wording, right? Birth tourism involves pregnant women traveling to the United States on a temporary B-1 bomber, B-2 visitor visa, with the intent of delivering a child who automatically gains U.S. citizenship. Federal regulations prohibit ensuing visitor visas for this purpose.
I always liken turtles, sea turtles. They come from the ocean and they trundle up to the beach, lay their eggs on the beach, then go back into the ocean and swim away. And then the eggs hatch a couple of months later. The environmental people are very determined that you don't screw around with the process, and they swim away. And that's what birth tourism really is. But
it's true, though.
The turtles.
So true. The turtle people. We're going to call them. Oh, well, that'll be racist.
Yeah.
We call them the turtle people. They'll
Well-
fight. Oh, how can you say that about a turtle?
I think you think it's a shell game. Yeah.
What are the animals that go after these eggs? I forget.
Well, people, but
seagull. No,
others,
the seagulls or is it,
birds. I don't know.
yeah, something that's
But the
going into the sand.
But the point is, what is going on is there are these networks of birth tourism where they really work at it. According to the State Department, the U.S. Embassy in West Africa uncovered a network involving 100 foreign nationals who allegedly relied on fraudulent documents and visa intermediaries, often referred to as fixers, to secure visitor visas. Officials said the visas were revoked and local authorities were engaged in identity-related operations. In Europe, investigators identified more than 400 birth tourism cases dating back to 2024. The State Department said at least 6 companies allegedly coached applicants and had to answer visa questions, arrange housing in the U.S., and coordinating delivery plans designed to facilitate childbirth on American soil.
Or shouldn't there be some kind of consequence for those official people?
Yeah,
that
those are
help?
criminal prosecutions.
They are criminal.
Yeah.
Good. Wow. Why you want to
The evidence mounts 10. The evidence mounts of non-citizens reaching the voting rolls.
DOJ officials have found 3 major problems in policing states' voter roll ahead of the 2026 election. Hundreds of thousands of dead people, we talked about this earlier, still eligible to vote. Tens of thousands of illegal aliens on the rolls, and scores of foreigners having gone beyond registering to, in fact, vote in the federal election, which is illegal. We're trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. Yeah, that's well put. We're trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon because there isn't a culture of U.S. attorneys going after these, she explained. That's changing. Who's she? I didn't write who it was. I didn't write it in.
Dylan, the
Yeah. She was, right, I don't have that. That's changing with the sudden explosion of these cases. So, pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that the impact of Trump's speech this week will be a real crackdown on illegal voting in the election. And I think that he's going to force the Senate to pass the SAVE Act, which will require photo IDs in the election. They're doing it through a reconciliation bill that cannot be filibustered, that passed the House and now is coming to the Senate. And to defend the coming to the Senate, they are including a grant program to states to help them implement it. So there's a fiscal consequence to satisfy the freaking parliamentarian who will have to rule for it now.
I don't understand that parliamentarian.
But I think that's going to happen.
I can't believe that's even still happening.
100 House Democrats voted to cut off aid to Israel, showcasing the major party shift. Democrats always were very supportive of Israel, but now Democrats split evenly on an amendment to cut off aid to Israel. The amendment failed 104 yes and 314 no, with all the Republicans killing it. But 103 Democrats voted to cut off aid to Israel, and 98 Democrats voted against doing so. So that this is a major change in the Democratic Party, and it's not only among the socialists and the crazies, it's now among the average, routine Democratic members of the House.
You know, I know the answer to this, but I think we should talk about how do you feel, how is it that Democrats all of a sudden turned against Israel and the Jews, being that there's a big population? I know we talk about this a lot.
Well, it became, part of it is the Palestinians who were led into the United States. But they're minor. They're only 2 or 3% of the vote, if that.
Yeah, but they got a big mouth.
And many of them are in places which are not anti-Israeli, like from Bangladesh and Pakistan. But I think that basically is the movement. I think the radical left indoctrinated the campuses, and the campuses have led the Democratic Party in that direction. But bear in mind the fundamental truth that I've been saying
Is
for...
that like the McKinsey, the Long March? Is
Yeah,
this kind of the
exactly.
Long March? Okay, go on.
But it really is also the fundamental truth that I've always said, and I've said this for 2 years now. Every time the Democrats lose an election, they always move to the left.
Further and further to the
When
left.
Nixon defeated Humphrey, their next candidate was McGovern. When Reagan defeated when Reagan defeated Carter, their next candidates were Mondale and Dukakis. The Democrats always move to the left. And the reason they move to the left is that the Republicans and the moderates and sane people leave the Democratic primaries. And the crazy leftists stay in the Democratic
primaries.
Because the Democratic Party lost. And they liked the Republican policies, and they liked Reagan, and they like what he's doing, and they move out.
Got it.
And that leaves only the crazies in the Democratic primary. And the Democratic primary, therefore, moves to the left. Now, there's always rhetoric of saying we're not fighting hard enough against Trump and against the conservatives, but it really is a demographic fact. The moderates leave the Democratic primary and they leave the crazies in charge.
Unbelievable.
Now, Massachusetts, Barbara Anderson, who was the head of Citizens for Limited Taxation in Massachusetts, called the bluff of Democrats, called the bluff of Democrats, and they passed a voluntary tax.
This is hilarious, actually. For more than 20 years, the Massachusetts income tax form was included as an option for tax filers to voluntarily pay almost 6%, 5.85% tax rate instead of a statutory rate of 5%. Barbara Anderson, a citizen for limited taxation, proposed a voluntary 5.85% rate as a challenge to Massachusetts voters who say they support higher taxes. Filers who believe the state needed more revenue can choose to pay for more than this is great. So are the Massachusetts Democrat Socialists lining up to pay more taxes? Not many. Only 1,500, 0.05% of the 3,000,002 taxpayers opted to pay higher tax rates. So basically, 1,500 people out of 3 million are now saying, okay, I'll pay higher tax for this. This exposes widespread tax hypocrisy on the left. When they say they want higher taxes, they mean more taxes for thee, not for me.
Isn't that a great story? Now, the
brave new age of trust fund socialism.
Yeah.
This falls right in with that last story.
inherited wealth is a key source of funding for left-wing politicians and associated activist groups. Mackenzie Scott, ex-wife of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and Lawrence Powell Jobs, widow of Apple founder Steve Jobs, have donated billions in support of left-wing causes such as racial equality and climate change.
Climate justice.
And so the trust fund babies are basically fueling the move to the left.
That climate justice is whatever it's called when prosecutors repeatedly decline to punish criminals. That's
Yep,
what the
that's right.
climate justice.
Now, this is an important perspective. We've all heard and read about the increasing efforts of the left to make socialism acceptable and to advance the idea of socialism. But what we don't realize is that socialism is creeping into control in the U.S. because healthcare, which basically is socialist, except the huge portions of it are controlled by Medicare and Medicaid, and even those that are privately insured are subject to heavy government regulation. So it's damn near socialized medicine. In 1990, manufacturing is the top employment sector in most states, including New York and California. But today, healthcare is the nation's biggest employer. Number one in almost every individual state, New York, California, Texas, and Pennsylvania. But healthcare is special. Not only is it more heavily regulated in other fields, it's tied to massive entitlement systems of Medicare and Medicaid and a host of lesser programs as well. And the socialists, who are an increasingly powerful bloc in the Democratic Party, aren't content with a slow conversion of American healthcare into socialism. They're eager to expand Medicare into Medicare for all, and many still dream of the outright nationalization of medicine on the model of the British National Health Service. Progressives see gaining power over medicine as a shortcut to their battles over abortion, euthanasia, biological sex and gender change, and much more. And more Americans are made dependent on the government for their health care or for their jobs, and the less they feel likely or able to vote against those who are running the current system.
They know how to do it. Democrats know how to put the machine
I have a
together.
great joke about health care. In 1946, Churchill was defeated for prime minister, and Clement Attlee was elected the prime minister of Britain.
Does anyone else know those names? Not
And
Churchill, but
and
Clement.
in 1946 or 47, with the socialists running the government, Churchill was still in Parliament, and he went to the bathroom, and he stood in front of his urinal, and Clement Attlee, the head of the Labour Party, walked in for the adjacent urinal. And Churchill pulled his jacket up so that Attlee wouldn't see him peeing. And Attlee said, "Shy, Winston?" And Churchill said, "No, it is not that at all. It is just that when you see anything that is big and impressive,
horrible.
you nationalize it."
That's horrible. Come on. All right, with that, we have to take a break now. Wash his mouth out.
This is 77 WABC, and this is the Dick Morris Show. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes,
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show,
go to-
sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Let's go to Michael in Rockaway. I think he's doing a campaign on the ground. Michael, what did you say you need to do more?
I met with some Democrats, moderate Democrats, that are intent on getting Hochul out in northern Queens last Sunday, and they had approached the Blakeman campaign, and this gentleman that I met is convinced that he can has an organization that can contact 1 million households in the 5 boroughs, but he's got to get the Blakeman campaign, to support them and to back them financially.
Why don't you
Get
take the
job
info,
done.
Doug, and call Blakeman?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, give Doug the phone number and the name, and he'll call Blakeman. I think that's a good thing, and thank you for calling,
That's
Michael.
great. Michael, actually, stay on the line, and they'll take your number, and I will definitely call Blakeman and call you.
Thank
and
you.
Talk about it. Thank you.
We really need your help, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, Dick, you want to take one of these?
Yeah.
How about Dana? Dana from Brooklyn. We got Rockaway. We got
I love
Brooklyn.
your show. Hello?
Hi, Dana.
Hey, Dana.
Yes, you guys are tremendous. There's a bona fide election review organization, and a woman named Marley was on Jake Novak at 5:30 this morning and broke the story. There are 13% that they found so far, 13% completely erroneous votes of the Mandami election.
Wow.
6% of these votes were non-existent Social Security numbers. They couldn't track any connection, and 7% of those 13% were completely people that just didn't exist.
All right, but nothing's going to happen with the Democratic New York.
That's fascinating.
No,
that is
One
amazing.
second.
Yeah, but the New York City
giving these-
Board of Elections should have been on top of that.
They're giving these to the federal government. They're
Yeah.
giving these these reviews to the federal government. It's all bona fide. It's bona fide checking.
That's fascinating.
Marley,
Thank you,
this woman,
Diana, for
it's
telling
bona
us about it.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana. That was great.
Let's go to Joyce in New Jersey.
Hi, Joyce in New Jersey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What's going to happen if the Democratic?
I love your show.
Thank you.
Oh, come on, you added an awful lot to ABC. I just want to go through a few things that I care about. I care about Bruce Blakeman, and I don't think he will win only because the Democratic Party will take.
Well, he might win. He might win.
He might.
I hope so. No,
Hochul didn't win by that much, and he's waging a very good campaign. I would not count Bruce out.
At all.
But go ahead, please,
I hope
Joyce.
I'm wrong. And the same thing I felt about Hochul. I think she's going to breeze right through.
No.
And
No.
I hope
No
I'm wrong.
breeze.
No breeze. I mean, it's possible she could
I
win,
hope I'm wrong.
but I don't see a breeze.
You know, could I tell you my main problem?
Sure.
It's with the Republicans in Washington. I think they also got so much fraudulent money that they don't want to give anything up now either.
That's right.
And
I agree with that.
They're not working with our president at all. And the president, I feel sorry for him because he seems to be out there alone.
No. He's got strong support from most of the Congress.
Right.
The House is absolutely at his whim. The Senate, the problem is that there are 4 U.S. senators who are retired, 2 of whom he defeated, John Cronin from Texas and Cassidy from Louisiana. And Trump ran the campaign that beat them in their own primaries. So they're not going to be loyal to Trump. They're mad at Trump. Trump cost them their seats. Mm-hmm. They just haven't left yet because their terms aren't over. You also have Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who Trump has always opposed. He's retiring. And then not retiring, you have Murkowski from Maine. But so Trump has his problems in the Senate. But he's ultimately going to prevail, and he's very, very tough in dealing with them. Thanks for your call,
I
Joyce.
hope so.
Thank you.
And I just wish the Republicans would do more for him.
Yeah, I keep
I
saying
think
that.
so, too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, we've read about the serious decline in test scores in New York public schools. And part of this is because the legislature in New York, unlike Pennsylvania, does not allow charter schools. There are some charter schools, but they're capped at 100. And as a result, the number of people who can be in charter schools, students, is very, very low. And the public education in New York remains a monopoly. Now, in the rest of the country, that's not true. Because in the big, beautiful bill, Trump passed a provision that said that every taxpayer could take a tax credit of $7,500 for a contribution for tuition to a private parochial or homeschooling, but only if the state's governor allowed it. And New York and other states have refused to allow it, so our citizens don't have that option. But 28 states have done it, and it's changing public education.
You wonder why. I mean, I know why the Democrats would not.
The teachers' union.
Sure, the teachers' union.
But it's interesting.
Vote.
Absenteeism is a significant factor in really screwing up our test results. And it's entirely based on ethnicity. 11% of Asian 7th graders are chronically absent. 13% of Asian 7th graders are chronically absent, compared to 36% of blacks and 35% of Hispanics. And in kindergarten, black and Hispanic absenteeism is twice what it is among Asians. So, literally, one of the effects of COVID, I think, where schools were closed, is that it eliminated the habit of school attendance. And truancy in New York is absolutely now the norm. It's almost reached the point where more kids are truant than actually show up.
It basically is accepted somewhat. That's
Yeah,
what it
1/3
is.
of the black and Hispanic kids don't go to school. So what do you expect when they grow up? And the left is busy complaining that specialized high schools like my alma mater, Stuyvesant and Bronx Science and Brooklyn Tech, don't have large minority populations. Only about 5% of Stuyvesant is black and 4%
So
is
won't
Hispanic.
the charter schools help
But
that?
but because of that, but that's because they flunked the test, and they flunked the test because they are truant, because they don't go to school.
There you go.
They don't avail themselves of that. Now the answer is charter schools. The answer is in Philadelphia, where parents were realizing that the school system was screwing up their kids. They moved en masse to charter schools. 250,000 Philadelphia kids go to charter schools, and that has changed education completely in Pennsylvania. And we need to do the same thing in New York.
Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
In New Jersey.
Hello. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, another name, the SAFE Act, that bill has to pass. I remember when Donald Trump ran the second time, I remember it was 3 a.m, and I called my sister. I said, Leslie, I'm going to sleep. He has it in the bag. He's going to win this thing. And when I woke up the next morning, that didn't happen. So voter ID is important. I'll tell you why. Even though I continue to vote, a lot of people don't even bother because why vote? It's not going to help. So I think if we get the voter ID, if we get people, look, when I go shopping and I have to return something, the first thing they say is, can I see your ID, please? So I show it. When you want to buy something and you have to be the appropriate age, they want ID. When you go to the airport, they want ID. Everything requires an ID. So not to vote, shouldn't have an ID. That has to change.
Yeah.
And when you want your EBT card or whatever it's called, you need ID, and you need ID for all kinds of things.
And let's bear in mind that the Department of Justice has just revealed that in 4 states, New Jersey, California, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, 278,000 non-citizens are on the voter rolls, and 400,000 of the voters are dead. The name's still there, and they can still be voted, but they're dead.
People more.
700,000.
Yeah.
So you need photo ID. You absolutely have to have it.
Say it, Sandra. What were you going to say?
No, I agree with you, and I want to see this happen already. It's time for a change. God Almighty.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. And let's go one more. This is interesting. Jacqueline in New York. Hi, Jacqueline. This is interesting. Are you there, Jacqueline?
Yes.
New York?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. First of all, I always love the show, even if I can't get in when I'm trying to call.
Okay.
I just want to say...
Sorry about that.
That's quite okay, but I just want to ask you to comment on the relationship between Valerie Jarrett and Obama and thinking of this red-green alliance and how effective they have been in undermining our democracy. This woman still lives with him. Could you please comment? Thank you.
Yeah, well, Valerie Jarrett was the ideological master of Obama.
She was advisor to him? Was she advisor?
Chief advisor,
Advisor, yeah.
And really his lodestar. She's the person he followed. And I don't think it was a sexual relationship, but it was an ideological one. And she certainly performed a key role in making Obama into a leftist. Let's remember the history of Barack Obama. He first developed credibility when he addressed the Democratic National Convention and gave essentially a speech calling for an end to racism, an end to racial discrimination, and calling for integration. Then he got elected president because people wanted a black president. They thought it would be really cool, and they thought it would heal racial divisions in the country. And when Obama was elected president, he governed that way. He did not do anything radical. He didn't do anything rash. And he reassured the country that a black president could be fair. Then Obama was reelected in 2008. And after he was reelected, he went completely crazy. He became a real leftist. He began to advocate.
Hold on. He didn't become a real leftist. He let it out of the bag.
Yeah, he let it out.
But I'm going to say this. Right from the beginning, not even the second term, you saw in him where everything was race. When the guy from Congress, the cops came to his house. I don't know a guy from Congress. I forget who he was. Black guy. And then, let's have a beer with the cops. Everything was black and white. It was black against white.
Yeah,
black.
but
he had the opportunity as the first black president to bring us all together. Hey, it's okay. Let's talk about. Let's see what this is about, and you find out about it. No, he went right to the black vote and said, "Look, this is racial, black." Constantly.
Yeah. But that's true.
It made me look at it different, how I look at people. I'm a Bronx guy, and I don't have that racial thing. I don't look at a black guy, a white guy, Italian. I don't care what you are. I say hello, you say hello, and then what happens, happens. After Barack Obama became president, I started getting that when you were younger, how you were with the blacks and the whites. I started getting that way. I would go, because he kept doing that, and I caught myself.
Politically, Obama really went crazy in 2008 in his second term, and he became the black president only for blacks and passed a lot of programs that only applied to blacks. And when COVID hit, Biden continued those policies. He actually has passed programs that said only for black people, and whites need not apply. And that has so moved the Democratic Party to the left. And I think Valerie Jarrett had a lot to do with it. And I think that if you see Biden's first term as Obama's third term, it really works.
Well, because Valerie Jarrett would have dinner with Obama in the beginning of the Biden thing, right? Valerie Jarrett was always at his house having dinner, and then the next morning she was in the White House for the whole beginning, right? Like 6 months, maybe a whole year. It was a long time where she was at Bronx at night and then in the White House.
And it was clear that Obama never had dinner with white people.
I don't know, but really?
No, I mean, really. To get invited to the White House, you had to be black. That was quite well known.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, they was doing that too. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard just to be so opaque about it. You know what I mean? You can't even hide.
But the interesting thing that's gone on since then is that black women have continued their subservience to the Democratic Party. And you have Kamala Harris, you have women on the Supreme Court, Jackson and so on, who are black women. Right. But black men have begun to stray. And black men voted, a lot of them, for Trump. You had about 30% of black men voting for Trump.
I'd like to see a poll on who they are, middle class, working, college. I'd like to see who that demographic is, who that...
The black men who've left are cut across all the educational lines and all the income lines. And they increasingly began to realize that the Democrats were not only racist in that sense,
that's for sure,
but that they were gay. That the theme was Heather has two mommies.
Yeah.
And black men are not necessary. They're not necessary for reproduction
that was in
anymore.
The book? It said stuff like that?
No,
but that was
the book is called Heather Has Two Mommies. And it ratified gay families. And increasingly with the gender change effort, the Democrats are trying to make black men extinct. And they're trying to make sure that everybody is gay and moves in that direction.
And the black dudes are seeing that, obviously. The black guys are seeing that. And they're saying, you're not with me. Really? Wow, that's interesting.
So let's go to a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the wonders of creative destruction.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of Jokers to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So the wonders of creative destruction. Check, that's a good term. Creative destruction comes from the Australian economist Joseph
Schumpeter.
How do you say?
Schumpeter.
Trumpeter?
Schumpeter.
Writing in his book 1942, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. It's a fundamental virtue of free market capitalism. Free markets encourage investment and innovation to create new products that render obsolete and old ones, leading to the decline or destruction of legacy companies and traditional jobs. If it weren't for these forces, we'd all still be doing math on an abacus and riding a horse and buggy. We saw this chart. Well, Einstein said it. Creativity is where the only way you could learn and be smart. Imagine that.
So
we saw this chart
yeah,
from the Piper Sandler, and it's the absolute perfect depiction of creative destruction. It compares the 30 companies that comprise the Dow Jones Industrial Average in '76 versus today. Incredibly, Procter & Gamble has survived on this list. Chevron would make 2 of the counting presidents. So there's a chart that Dick wants to go over.
Yeah. The list is incredible. It's like reading about dinosaurs. The Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Brontosaurus and all of that. In 1976, the top companies were Allied Chemical, Alco, American Can Company, AT&T, Bethlehem, Chrysler, DuPont, Eastman Kodak, Exxon, GE, GM, Goodyear, and International Harvester. In 2026, none of those companies were on the list. The companies that are on it,
3M Company, Alphabet Incorporated, Amazon, American Express, Amgen, Apple Inc., Boeing, Caterpillar, that's the trucks, Chevron Corporation, Cisco, Coca-Cola, Goldman Sachs, Home Depot, and on, Honeywell.
So the companies have completely changed. So whenever anyone says, hey, your job's going to be made obsolete, you're going to be put out of business, the world is changing, and people like Hochul say no data centers in New York. What they're trying to do is to hold back the inevitable tide of history and the inevitable tide that replaces companies that are failing with companies that are succeeding.
That's competition. That's life.
Why America works. It's why America is so far ahead of every other country in economics. It's why our economy is doing well. It's because of creative destruction.
Listen, like I always say, mothers that tell their kids, they should all play baseball. Well, sometimes if you drop the ball, maybe you go home, you become a poet, become something else. I remember I was on the platform train going into the city, and I was young. And they were getting rid of the ticket guys. Yeah. And they were using the machines.
The ticket counters.
And the old dude said to me, and I was 30 years old, and the old dude said, that's horrible. What they're going to do? I go, no, what are you talking about? You're going to need people to repair the machines, to build the machines, to deliver the machines. And so you still have things going on.
Yeah.
You go to the next level, or,
and you have whole new
evolve.
Companies. You have people with a lot of time. You have more leisure time. Sports become more important. Entertainment becomes more important. And job centers change.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing that's not going to be a fix. That's going to take a lot of jobs. AI is going to take away from artists, musicians, not musicians as much, but yeah, probably, but definitely artists, painters, poets, all kinds of creative stuff, because AI does it in 2 seconds and better most of the time. So all the people that photographers, photo retouchers, that was been gone a long time already. You know what I mean? So you're going to lose a lot of jobs. So people are going to have to get good at carpentry and, building stuff. And
yeah, but the world changes.
It changes.
And with the capitalist system and the profit motive, People see profits, they go for it. Disposable income is increasing dramatically. Like I said in the last show, let me repeat the stat. The average American household, adjusted for inflation, the average American household makes $7,500 more than they did when Donald Trump first took office in 2018. And with that extra income, with that extra disposable
That's a good
income,
amount of money.
a huge amount.
That's a good amount of money.
The median household income when I worked for Clinton was about $60,000. Now it's about $100,000. And the extra income, the extra free time, gives people more creativity, more opportunity, and you get this massive expansion. You get these massive new fields that didn't exist before.
Sure.
And it's a total change that's very, very positive.
Let's go to Cindy in New Jersey. Hi, Cindy.
Gentlemen, I'd like to know where is Ed Cox? He's, I think, still the chairman of the New York State Republican Party.
Yeah, I was going to say Ed Cox is dead, but Ed Cox.
No, Ed Cox, C-O-X, Nixon's son-in-law.
Oh, wow.
And why isn't he out with Blakeman? Why isn't he doing media? He has the prime target in Kathy Hochul. What was he in the New York mayor's race?
Yeah.
Is he living in just behind a curtain?
Yeah, I have no idea. And thank you for coming on the air and saying that. Maybe he's listening, and maybe he'll up his game.
New York, right? I'm sorry. New York needs somebody with some fire and passion, and this is a prime time for him.
Yep.
He needs to be replaced.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the show.
Thank
Bye.
you. How about Russ in White Plains? How you doing, Russ in White Plains?
Hi, Doug. Hi, Dick.
Hi.
I want to remind Sandra the right to return items to store is not a sacred right like the right to vote. That's why it shouldn't be abridged. But it brings up to my mind, about Wilson, that horrible racist, and the DSA platform of making the Senate or getting rid of the Senate because it shouldn't be popularly elected. That violates one person, one vote. And I know, Dick, when you graduated in '68, you were a wild-eyed revolutionary, kind of like things are now.
My roommate was Jerry Nadler.
Can you believe it?
I know, but he was at Fordham, wasn't he?
No, he was with me at Stuyvesant in Columbia.
Oh, okay. Because I just wondered if you were in any of those occupied buildings. But
I graduated the year before.
Yeah.
But I was on campus as an observer working for the Percy Sutton, who was then the borough president of Manhattan.
Yeah, great.
And I haven't given a dime to Columbia ever since.
Well, you're consistent. But I do want to point out that straight white men and black women share the oppression by white women. That's where their demographic solidarity comes from. And when you and Jerry were at Stuyvesant, it was all boys. So, I mean, if girls had been allowed in, wouldn't half of those guys wouldn't be there? And the third thing is, I'd like to ask you, if the electorate votes for social democracy, does it undermine society to attack the people's choice that they don't want crony capitalism? But I really wanted to know about the 17th Amendment, if you think we could repeal that. So thanks a lot, fellas.
Okay.
Great show.
17th Amendment is a direct election of senators. I think you need to keep that because otherwise the political bosses select the Senate. The Senate was a terrible place before that amendment passed. It does eliminate one man, one vote, but that's a fundamental principle of the Constitution, that every state has equal representation, and that was the way the Constitution was ratified, and we can't go back and change that.
Okay, let's take a break.
And when we come back, we'll talk about the midterm elections.
This is 77 WABC, and this is the Dick Morris Show. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Here's Dick Morris on 77 WABC.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Dipierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Let me tell you about what's going to happen in the future.
Do tell.
The Republicans will win the election of 2026. The economy is good. The inflation rate is down. Trump has taken the idea of a nuclear-armed Iran off the table. He's unbelievably settled the Israeli-Hamas war. He's really cracked down on immigration. Nobody's coming into the U.S. illegally anymore, and 3 million people have either voluntarily or forcibly been deported. That has lowered the crime rate throughout the United States. Fentanyl deaths and opiate overdoses are cut in half.
It's not coming through the border anymore.
Yeah, but the addicts have been thrown out of the country.
Right, that too.
And the deportations have totally changed America, made us a safer, healthier place. And Trump is changing the whole American economy. It's booming. The inflation rate is gone. And it's amazing that he's achieved the trifecta, the balancing act of no inflation and economic growth.
He is good at
and he's
that.
done that by his tariffs, by moving companies into the United States, by making them stay here and doing their manufacturing. He's done it by increasing, not demand, but increasing the supply of American products by business-oriented tax cuts that have not produced inflation because we export. And we have foreign countries that buy our products. It's not domestics chasing too few goods and pushing up prices. It's foreigners buying American products, which does not cause inflation in the United States. And it's a fundamental, unbelievable change in the economy. It's because of his tariffs. It's because of his policies. And it's because of his tax cuts. His tax cuts are aimed entirely at the middle class, increasing the child care deduction, increasing the child tax credit, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. And that has increased the income of the average American. And with inflation dropping out of existence, wages and income are really moving up.
You know, you said, as you're speaking, I'm thinking what he does, how he does it, because he's a businessman and he looks at everything, how to build a house, how to do the thing, the trucking, the logistics of getting the materials here and there. He kind of thinks about everything, and that's the way he thinks about. And just now, you said the average American, in the last part of your sentence right there, and I thought to myself, also, the same thing I just said about how he works things into process with logistics. He's also been working with average Americans all his life. All the workers that build every building, the designers, the architects, they were all regular guys with regular cars that needed a raise or needed a thing. And if they worked really hard and they were good, he kept them. If they didn't, he let them go. And like I said, you're no good at being a good carpenter, go do something else. Go work somewhere else.
But let me go into the future in the seconds we have left. We're going to win in 26. In 28, Trump's record is so good that either any of the Republican candidates, whether it's Vance or Rubio or Cruz, is going to win the presidency. And the Republicans will gain in extra seats in the House and Senate. The House because the majority-minority ban on racial reapportionment will affect the remaining 10 Senate seats, House seats, that they didn't have time to do it before 26. Then in 30 and 32, the underlying demographic shift, the vast number of people who've moved out of New York and California to Texas and Florida and other states, is going to fundamentally shift, and the House is going to become permanently Republican by a margin of 20 or 30 seats. So that's the future, folks.
Well,
that's what
Dick,
it holds.
It's been an honor. Thank you to On the Rocks, Roxana. We never said goodbye to her proper when she got off before. Thank you, everyone. Great calls. Thank you again, Dick Morris. It's an honor.
This was great.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.